Okay, go ahead and put the mic wherever you're comfortable. Settle in.
Okay.
Okay. Your last name, am I pronouncing it correctly?
No.
No. Okay. Well, please correct me.
Utesch.
Utesch. Thank you. Apologize.
That's right.
All right.
You're not the first one.
Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Mark Utesch, M-A-R-K-U-T-E-S-C-H.
And maybe pull the mic just a little closer. Move the mic, not yourself. I can see you right there. That's great. Put it anywhere you want. Okay. Good. There we go. Great. Can you describe your property, its current use, and any plans you may have for the future? And I apologize, just to clarify real quick, it is Sioux County.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't live on this farm. This is not. Yeah, you're looking.
You're fine.
This is not where my house. I don't live near this farm. So.
Yeah. Yep. So go ahead for this specific parcel. Describe its current use and any plans you have for the future.
It's just corn and soybean farming. We have no other plans. I'm the operator, so it's I'm up with my sister and my dad, so we all own it together. And no plans for doing anything with it other than just corn and soybean farming.
Just to clarify that, did you say you own it with your sister and father, but you're the operator?
Yeah, it's kind of a complicated ownership thing where it's an undivided. My sister, it actually started out when my parents bought the farm back in the 80s. They put my sister and I as an undivided owners of a portion of the farm. And then through circumstances, so I actually don't know the exact percentage anymore. I mean, I would have to figure it all out because things have changed over the years, and so I don't know how legally that situation is. But I'm a partial owner along with my sister, which whatever share I have would be equal share. She would have the same equal amount of share, and my dad has the remainder.
But yep. Just trying to clarify that you have an ownership interest, but also the crop interest as well.
Yeah, I farm it. 100% of the crop is mine.
Gotcha. Perfect. Corn, soybean rotation, I heard you say.
Yes.
So can we get it looks fairly straightforward on the map, but you know it better than us. So can we get a general description of, the property in terms of terrain features, tile, buried infrastructure, all of the above?
There's no tile, no easements, no other infrastructure. It's a real clean farm. I will grab the pointer here.
So when you're pointing, if you can do us a favor and make sure that you're using descriptive words too, like within the north boundary or near the road, etc. That way when we go back and read the record, we'll know where you were talking about. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Okay. In the pipeline location where it runs here, this is the east fence line of the property. And right here, where you zoom in this location where you see that the obviously where I farm, I drive call it kind of an oxbow around a spot where there's a washout. And that's been there ever since we bought the farm back in the 80s. This farm is not highly erodible, at least not by the definition of the NRCS or anything. But this particular area right in here, and you can't tell, just to the, here would be to the south of that washout. You obviously can't tell with the map. You can't see it. Everything just looks flat here. But that's actually got a pretty sharp hill on it. I do some no-till, but not most of what I do is minimum till. But I make a point in that spot where that hill is. I don't till that, or if I do, I mean, I just barely scratch the ground because it washes really bad in that spot. Yeah, it makes it difficult. That particular makes it difficult area farm. It does lend to, and I think at some point in time I'll come back to that again. But this is a portion of my concern with the pipeline, at least on this particular property.
Just want to thank you for that description. So when you say, washout, you're referring to, when it becomes wet or when during rain, it will actually just wash and erode and head downhill towards that central oxbow you described it as?
Yeah, if I'm not, well, if it's a heavy rain, if you get something, a couple, 2-3 inches that come on, 15 minutes after really fast, that area you'll get some channeling in that spot.
Okay.
And I'm careful I don't want to erode that anymore. I mean, I can't really do anything about the ground. It is what it is. But I try not to do anything that's going to make that wash any more than what it does. Because even just no-tilling it, a heavy rain on it, that you're still going to get some channeling. And if it's bad, I do have a blade. I have it for my tractor. And that. I mean, I might try to smooth it out, things like that. But if anything, I try not to disturb that. So.
The oxbow or washout, as you described it, does that hold water frequently or ever?
No, there's no water. The lay of the land, the water does collect, from that. Well, let me try to, actually, if you could zoom out a little bit. The southern portion of this property, the crest of the it's a rolling hill, or the crest of this hill is right here. I'm going to approximate it, but say 50 yards from the southern property line. Okay, and so the water from essentially this entire 40 acres will, it does collect and end up at that spot. Hence why, over many years, that's where the water exits and goes on to my neighbor's property. And so it's over the years, it's cut. I actually have put, my intention is I want to smooth that out. And I've actually put some rock down there trying to keep it from cutting. So I don't want it to cut any more than what it has already. And I guess I'm trying to control my water. I don't want to have a situation where my neighbor, it's cutting into his field. So I'm doing what I can to try to be a good steward of this land and try to be good to my neighbor too. So.
Okay, but so what you're saying is effectively the water on, generally speaking, from the northwest to southwest corner, the whole western side of the field drains towards that washout or oxbow you described on the east side. So it's a rough triangle, and the drainage just generally flows and collects that way and leads to, you described it as washout, but erosion on that grade.
Yes.
That leads into that bow.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other features or conditions that might not be readily available that may impact a potential project? I mean, is there anything else that we just can't see from the map that we should know about your property in terms of terrain?
No, I don't foresee anything there that would be an issue. At least, I mean, I've never done any excavation there and like that, so I don't know if you would come. I don't deal with rocks or anything like that. I haven't had any other issues there, so it's not even that area where the water exits the property. generally, it's not. I don't have problems with it being wet. It'd have to be kind of an extreme year if there would be any issue there.
Can you describe any specific concerns you may have and any recommendations you have for board action to address those concerns?
I'm being kind of careful how I'm saying things.
Okay.
So, I think one of my concerns, this is probably a good spot for me to share one of my concerns. And because of the location, at least because I know the property, and because of putting in the pipeline and the location would be, I have some concerns of if that ground is disturbed, that it would be loose and potentially could have an issue of it washing out, and if you were to have, or if it undermined the pipe, because when I look at it, if that ground's loose, and then if the water goes into where the pipeline was put in, could you actually produce a void underneath the pipeline? And then I'm going to grab the pointer again here, but along the pipeline here, that's the end rows, and that's pretty typical, of a square farm. I farm it east and west, and that's where I'm turning. Obviously you're going with the pipeline when you're doing all your tillage pass, your planter pass, with the combine, things like that. And then every time I come to the end of the field on every single pass going down the road, I'm turning again on top of where that pipeline is. And I have some concerns that if there was a void or something that developed underneath that pipeline, it's not as if I'm just crossing it once. I'm crossing over this thing everywhere, multiple times, multiple passes, with multiple different pieces of equipment. So it raises to me a concern of, is there a risk of what I described as a void underneath the pipeline? Is there a risk that could occur? And I see that as potential. I mean, it's not zero. And I also see that what's the probability of something to happen if, say, that potential risk occurred. And I have some familiarity with pipeline work, and I'm not, the probability is still low, okay? But I'm testing it, everywhere along that pipeline, every time I'm in the field. So, it's just the idea, it's like every time I go across that, I'm testing it again. And I know people, I'm trying not to, I think when I get done here today, some of the things I might say might be speculative of nature, but they seem, they're important to me. And I have some background to try to support that. And I know that people talk about, pipelines. We have 5,000 miles of CO2 pipelines in the U.S. and different things like that. And I haven't researched enough to know, are these applications where they've been done before? I mean, are we talking about potentially different scenarios? Because like some of these pipelines that are in use, like in Canada, there's a significant amount of pipelines in Canada, and down in Texas, some of the oil companies and that stuff, this is not new. They've been using these for a while. But where they've got these pipelines buried, I'll use the word test again, but are we using them in a spot where the people are purposely trying to keep the soil loose, trying not to create compaction? Are we using them in areas where we have the rainfall that we have, or the potential rainfall that we have, And are we constantly crossing these with heavy equipment? So that's the. I mean, it's a question. I'm not giving an answer. It's just a question that I have. So, just because we say we have 5,000 miles of pipeline, do we have 5,000 miles of pipeline? Or I should rephrase that. Of the 5,000 miles of pipeline, do we have any miles of pipeline that have a similar situation as this? Okay.
So not to paraphrase, but if I'm hearing you, your primary concerns then are in regards to the route, the consistent exposure to stress from heavy equipment, but also the aggravation of your potential erosion challenges there on the east side of the field.
Yeah.
Okay.
Potential erosion challenges for the pipeline. So, I mean, I'll control it. I'm talking, the pipeline. If the pipeline goes in and it's there, I will manage the situation. Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna be, if for some reason, if I see a sinkhole, if I see something going on, I know the pipeline's there. I'm gonna ensure that it's taken care of. I mean, it's just what I do. That's the kind of person I am. I'm not gonna, see a hole and then go, well, I'm not gonna call Summit and go, you got a hole in your pipe. I mean, I might call Summit and go, I see a hole in the pipe. You got something here we need to do something about, and I don't know what that response would be. I'm forward thinking. I don't know what the response would be to that, but in that scenario, if that's there, if I see something that looks like a problem, I'm going to tell them because it's their pipeline. And if everybody's just got cool heads, I'm like, okay, I'll just I'll just try to cover it back up, fill it back in and things like that, probably inspect it. When I say inspect it, I mean if it's deep or something like that, you're like, okay, is this really down here by the pipeline? Do I got a big potential issue there? It's like, well, then they're going to have come out and address it just to be safe. So, but that's what I say. I don't know how I am, with other people and stuff, but I know I would manage it.
Okay. Any recommendations for an alternate route for the proposed line? And if so, can you describe the potential advantages and disadvantages?
That should be an easy question. You don't know me, and I think at some point in time I'm going to share some of my background here. I think once you understand that, it'll make more sense of why this is not as simple a question for me. But how about I just keep it simple at this point? It's as far as that piece of property goes, that's, in my opinion, as the operator of that farm, that's not the best spot to put it. Okay, I don't know what ends up. If you put the pipeline in, they're going to have to. Essentially like this. Well, I'm sorry, I probably should not use my hand, but essentially right where that washout is. When they put the pipeline, they're going to fix it for me. I get the benefit of they're going to something that I've been meaning to go address for years, and I haven't fixed it yet. Well, they'll fix it for me. And I haven't asked them to. We haven't got to that level, but it's still they're not going to go in and regrade the land, anything like that. I don't expect them to, and I know that's just not how that works. So, but it's not the best spot. could it be, if you ask me, could it be in a better spot on the farm? Yeah, you could put it in a better spot. But I know that's not how this works. So I mean, I think when if I talk some about my background, you'll understand why I understand why that's not as simple. So
Go ahead. Give us your background. Give us your concerns. If that
okay,
answer it however you'd like. It's your time.
okay. Is that kind of the last question you got, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I've been watching the hearings and that for the last couple weeks, and so I know the process. So well, I've been thinking a lot about this particular project the last couple weeks, and my my concern with the project isn't so much about this particular piece of property, and I don't know. The last week when you guys started the hearing, there isn't so much talk about is this speculative or not, or are you trying to forecast things that may or may not happen, things like that. But I can't help but think of what kind of things could happen, what could impact the people that live around here, or the farm economy, or the corn market, or ethanol plants in general. And that's really more my broader purpose for being here today. And I don't know if this is the right forum. It might not be. And I'll tell you, I think you can tell that I'm not comfortable. I'm showing that. This is a. I mean, I don't want to be here today. Okay, I have a lot of concerns, and I was watching the hearings, and actually, if I take a step back, when I got a notification, of the eminent domain, that wasn't a surprise to me. I mean, I consider myself a fairly smart person. I mean, you knew it was coming. It made, to be honest, when I look at Summit and doing a project, I mean, I'm careful what I'm saying here, but I mean, it makes, from their perspective, it makes sense for how they're wanting to move forward. But at the same standpoint, I suppose, just based on what I just said, I don't agree with the eminent domain. It doesn't feel like a public project to me. And a lot of people the people that I have talked to, they agree with me on that. And I've talked to landowners that have signed, the voluntary easements, and they've signed the easement, right? And I know there's people that it's kind of feels like there's a spin out there, that, well, these people, they signed the easement, that means they're okay with it. I'm like, well, I don't feel like that's what we're here for. It's not just because somebody signed an easement, that means they're okay with what they were offered for the pipeline, and they're okay with, the pipeline itself, but it doesn't mean they're okay with eminent domain. And the people that I've talked to, the ones that have signed the easement, said that they don't agree with eminent domain. I did what I did, but I don't think it should be forced on you if you have a different opinion. So I mean that's one piece, and I'm I when I called the IUB, I think I did it on the last day because I've been back and forth on this in my mind 1,000 times, and when I called the office and I said, well, should I say something? Should I be on do testimony or not? And they can't offer me, they can't give me any type of advice, whether I should or should not. And I understand that. I know they can't. But what was put to me was, well, if and I'll step back here, but I'm going to meander a little bit, so if that's all right.
You drove a long way. You can take as long as you like.
Yeah. You might not like you told me that in a little bit. But the way it was put to me was, well, if you can be on the list and to testify, right? And it's easier to take you off than it is to put you on. So that initiated, like, okay, I said, I don't want to get up here and recreate, and say the same thing that when I say we, because I've been on that camera watching a lot of it, so I've been here, and I don't want to say the same thing that a bunch of other people said. It's been said, there it is. But the person that I talked to at the IUB said, well, I think I have potential to offer some feedback that most other people, the landowners that are on this pipeline can't do, at least credibly. And that was where, that's what kind of got me like, okay, so, put me on the list. And that initiated 2 weeks of just pure torture for me. I've been just coming doing what I'm doing right now. I've been just dreading this for 2 weeks. And it's because I've got a different viewpoint than a lot of the people that have been up here. And it's because I'll look at things a lot. I'm very objective with how I look at things. I try not to get, try not to let emotion or anything like that get too involved. But, what makes sense and, what is going to happen. And, so I've been watching all the hearings, or all the people testify, and I'd say I think I've caught about 75% of what's been going on here. And just so, to be honest, I didn't know, I was actually initially scheduled to be here on the schedule for yesterday. That was the initial, from 2 weeks ago, that was the initial date that was put together, and I've been just, trying to, even up to yesterday, I still couldn't decide of whether I wanted to be up here. And, I came yesterday. I was here. I didn't come with the idea of testifying. I wanted to know. I wanted to know what I'm dealing with. More than just watching it on the camera. It's one thing to just look at it, on your computer screen, and it's another thing when it's staring you in the face. So I was here, and actually one of the, I kind of like to be anonymous. It's really hard to do this, to be anonymous, because my name is out there. Obviously I made a request for a slight change, and and there's not a lot of people here today. We've got the people they're representing, but even you know, there's more security here than there is spectators. So, so yeah, I mean, just this group of people here, it's not very large, but I don't know who's on the other side of that camera. You know, I don't know how many people are on there. Nobody here knows me. As far as I know, I don't think anybody here knows me, so I'm still somewhat anonymous. But I don't know who's on the other side of the camera. And some of the people over there, they do know me. They do know me, and I don't know what kind of impact that's going to have. You know, and one of the individuals that testified yesterday, he was talking to me, and I didn't know him, and you know, and he was kind of rehashing, you know, his thoughts and opinions, and I think it was because, you know, he was, because I'm here as another witness, you know, that I'm, you know, I'm like I'm on his team, you know, I'm on his side. And I'm just so careful on what I say because, you know, I wanted to be honest with him. You know, I guess I didn't want to get into a debate or something like that. That wasn't what I was here for. But I wanted to be honest with him. You know, and the one thing I told him was, you know, when we were walking out, I said, you know, I have some reservations because I have some more comments to make. And I said, I think I'm going to leave here tomorrow. You know, this was yesterday, so today. I said, I'm going to leave here, and I think everybody in the room is going to be really mad at me because I'm going to be this person that's in the middle, right? If you don't pick a side, then you're just by yourself, you know, and it's like, you know, what I say, and I don't know the people on the camera, like they're all going to be mad at me too, even her, you know, because I use 100 words to say what could have been said in 10, so she's probably going to be mad at me too. At least you're smiling. So I guess, well, you know, I have in my mind, I've got a destination that I'm in this long, drawn-out talk that I'm making. I have a destination I want to get to. Hopefully, if you're okay with me being a little bit speculative and that, and some of the things I say, hopefully I don't, you know, on this way to this destination, I hope I don't jump on the curb too much, but I might meander a little bit.
You're fine.
So, I guess, well, you know, this project to keep, you know, I was first made aware of it a couple of years ago. And it's not the first time that I've heard about, you know, carbon capture. I've educated myself rather well, definitely in the last couple of years, but even before that, it's not the first time that I've dealt with carbon capture. And I've actually, the first time that I was ever, it was even somewhat of a discussion, would have been like 2006, where that was the first time I'd heard any discussion about, you know, trying to pipe CO2 from an ethanol plant, you know, for, it wasn't, you know, geological storage, but it was for use, in industrial use. In you know, in 2006, that wasn't well, I mean, the ethanol industry was just starting. I mean, there was a few plants going, but it was just getting going. It was just, you know, that was the boom time, you know, for the ethanol. You know, there were plants going up everywhere. You couldn't build them fast enough. And so there was a lot of things getting thrown out there. And I actually worked in an industry that used CO2. So when I first heard it, I was like, well, it's mentioned to me. I said, well, okay, we use CO2. We don't use, I mean, I think we use, maybe 10 tankers, of liquid CO2 in a year. I think our storage, probably 30, 40 ton of storage capacity. And, I was just like, well, I remember the person mentions like, well, that's just not going to happen. Okay, so I'm not going to use, the CO2. First of all, you're never going to be able to justify to pipe it to me, ever. And second of all, it's like, I can't use your CO2 in a food product. Okay, I've got to have it. So it's got to be clean. I got to have it from a trusted source. I said, it's just too risky, okay, for me to try to use your CO2. And so that was the first time. And then so the second time would have been about 2016. And that was where I was first introduced to geological storage of CO2. And it wasn't popular. I think, this geological storage of CO2, this is not, people in the country and all that stuff, it feels like it's only been around for 2 years. It's like, no, this has been around for a long time. And I am sure that, the people, if you want, you look at hedge funds and oil and gas companies and all that stuff, I am sure that doing this has been on their radar for probably a couple decades already. Okay, these things don't, they don't just make them up that quick. Okay, these things have all been discussed and that, or they've been happening for a long time. It's just that now it's become economical. Okay, you can put a spreadsheet together and it makes sense. Okay, from somebody's spreadsheet. Okay, again, being careful what I say. And so that's why, when this started happening, I wasn't shocked by it. I was like, it just seemed like the natural course of events. If you, the 45Q and the LCFS, and if you go back 2 years ago, the LCFS, was 200 some. Today it's probably 77, something like that. That makes a difference, but the 45Q goes to $85 a ton. These spreadsheets now all of a sudden look really good. If you're a company that wants to, you're looking to get a payback, and I'm not, I'm not against, capitalism and like that. I understand it. People, they go to the voting booth, and I live in, Northwest Iowa. I have a farm in Sioux County. They go to the, people, they go to the voting booth to, where capitalism's a pretty good thing. They like it, okay? But, and everybody, if that's the rules you set, and if you're fine when it's going in your favor, but when you're on the other side of it, then all of a sudden you got a big problem. Well, if those are the rules that we've set, I guess you can't blame somebody for trying. So, I understand the whole thing with what Summit's wanting to do and why they want to do it, and Navigator and that. It's just the natural course of how, a large fund, and, they're looking to make an investment. I'd have to hope that this investment, they want to get a return off of it. I'd have to hope that this investment, there's some ulterior things that I shouldn't say ulterior. I'm not trying to make them a victim or a villain, but there's something beyond the money, okay? But well, let me get off the curb and get back on path. So I decided that I would testify, And really yesterday, the reason, I made that decision yesterday, really. I mean, it was the final one. I made that decision because I called somebody I was trying, actually the day before I was trying to contact him, but he got back to me yesterday, and I talked to him. He's somebody that I have a lot of, I trust their opinion. They're objective. They know me. They know how I do, why or what I do. And, and the way he kind of phrased, because I asked him, should I do this or not? And the way he put it to me was, well, you have a lot of expertise and education, and can you offer possibly something more of a viewpoint or of an opinion that is of value? And I was like, I think I can do that. I think that makes sense. And then on top of that, I told him, I said, I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep until I do. Because that's I said 2 weeks ago, my life has just been hell. It's because I'm a different kind of person, because I don't know if I don't think I've had a total of 10 hours sleep in the last 10 days because I can't get this thing that we're doing here. I can't get it out of my head. I can't make it stop. And, and it just, I haven't been, I was like, I'm so uncomfortable that, right now, it's like I'm so uncomfortable that my teeth hurt. And I'm just exhausted. And I know I'm kind of rambling, and normally I'm better at this, but I was like, even right now, it's like, I can, my brain is not firing on all cylinders. I can feel it, that just the exhaustion is setting in. And, it's like, I leave here today, I don't know if I should go get a hotel room or, a hospital room, because it's just, I got to get to the end of this, and that's what he told me yesterday. He said, he's like, you're not going to get this to go away. You're going to have to do it. You're going to have to get up here, and if you feel like you need to say what you got to say, you got to do it. Otherwise, you're never going to get away from it. And I haven't felt like this. It's been 16 years since I've been this screwed up. And, it's like my girlfriend, she's like, what are you doing? Why are you letting something bother you so much? Do you really think you can make an impact on it? Do you really think it matters? Is it, what are you going to do? That just stop, just stop what you're doing. Take care of yourself, and I'll admit, I've had to be careful on what I've been doing the last few days because I know my head is not working, because I've been trying to, I don't have, my productivity the last two weeks has just been zero. I can't do anything. I can't think straight. I can't, I'm talking, anything else. Because like two days ago, I was, listening to the hearing, and I'm trying to, I don't have, I can't, this isn't my job, right? To be here, and so I'm trying to get other things done. So I got some earphones, I got it on my phone. I can play it and put some covers. Because then I went out and I was cleaning up. I've got some CRP and some ground that I took out of CRP. That it was just some grass, and I'm like, okay, just do something while you're going. So I'm mowing some grass and that, and listening to the hearing at the same time, and then I'm out there, and next thing you know, I stop, and so then I reach down, and and I'm listening at the same time, and then I put the tractor in gear, and I let go of the clutch, and I backed it right into the waterway, and I almost rolled it. And I've never done. I mean, that's not me. I don't do stuff like this. I mean, I'm sitting here having to crawl on this tractor, going, "What? Like you're gonna kill yourself if you keep going." So I just, I know that's where I was. I was like, I don't know if what I say here today. I don't know if it's going to matter. Most people tell me it's not. Right? Just don't do it. And I'm going, yeah, but I can't. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it to quit. And what happened to me 16 years ago when I was in this same spot, right? There were things that happened, and I sit there every day. I think about what could have I done different, what should I have done different, okay, that I wouldn't still be dealing with it, okay? Could I have done something that would have changed that? And I don't want to be in a spot where I don't come up here and then I don't say something and then something does happen and I spend the next 16 years just sitting there regretting it. Because, I'm 47, and I'll tell you what, I've looked better. So I'm nobody here knows me, so, but somebody else is, they probably look at the camera going, what? It's like, geez, you look horrible. So it's, I don't want to do that all over again. So I guess I got to take the opportunity while it's there to say something. So, well, unfortunately, I've got a long ways to go. So you might be regretting not breaking for lunch. I have a degree in mechanical engineering from Iowa State, and I've worked in. I didn't initially start in food manufacturing, but I spent a lot of years in food manufacturing. So I managed, dealing with refrigeration, with ammonia, with refrigeration processes, and then I have some experience with CO2. Not anywhere near to the scale that we're talking about, but I'm not showing up here at zero. I understand CO2. I understand it was liquid CO2. So I mean, I'm not just any farmer. I'm showing up with some experience and education, and one of the something that's in my background that might be considered just an unreasonable coincidence is one of the places I was employed. I was actually on the team that developed the first prototype for using CO2 on poultry. The actual equipment that's used it was the prototype. I wasn't involved in the production, but I was involved in developing the first prototype for them for the company I was at to actually change their process. They're looking to change their process to asphyxiate poultry rather than using, a lot of time it was the electroshock type system there. But that was probably the swine industry there was already some plants that were used at that time. So we talk about people, what's it like being exposed to CO2? And I can't say humans, but I mean, I have some idea of what, if you put an animal in a CO2 environment, I know how that works. I understand, how that system, how that how that reaction is to an animal, and it was on purpose. I mean, that was what I was there for, was to design this. Well, not me by myself. There was a lot of people involved, and so I mean, you sit there and I see this, and I'm like, man, this is just so coincidental. Some of these things all lining up. And it just kind of was shocking to me that it's like I don't understand. What are the odds of me having some of those different occurrences, or experiences? And well, I mean, I'm kind of meandering again, but so I worked in food industry for a little over 10 years. I probably should know that exactly, but a significant number of years managing hazardous liquid, ammonia systems, CO2. The quantity wasn't that great, but I did have to manage it. And then I left working in the food industry and went to work in the ethanol industry. I don't currently work in the ethanol industry now, but I did. I did worked in the ethanol industry, and so as a producer, I've grew up on the farm, so I mean I've been raising crops for ever. And then when I sold grain to the ethanol plant, but I worked in an ethanol plant, and I did a lot of work on carbon type work, carbon reduction, and I think this is the point where this is the spot where I start ticking everybody off. So a lot of the people coming here are there's different ways that some people are whether they're for it or against it or opposing that. And I am not against carbon capture for an ethanol plant. And this is me speaking as an engineer and as a farmer. I've worked in the industry, and I know people out there. There's some spin and things like that going on, but I understand the industry, and I've done my research to the best of what I can. But I feel as though I've done enough to educate myself, to understand the situation, to be able to come to an objective opinion based on what I would consider solid facts and some forecasting of where things are going. So me, as somebody who's worked in the ethanol industry, I go back, to 2016. I kind of, the electrical vehicles. I mean, they've been, they're not new. I mean, they've been coming around, but I just, for some reason, that's where it kind of stuck at me. The electrical vehicles were coming on, and people are saying, get ready. Like this is one of the things that's going to impact this industry. This is one of the things we got to follow. And I know a lot of people are just kind of blowing it off. And I'll admit, I think about that time frame as like I didn't. I saw it coming, but it's how fast. If you would ask me back in 2016, I would have never thought that the electrical vehicles would be coming on as fast as what they've had, and really the last couple of years extremely fast. And part of it was, things have changed with the electrical vehicles. Obviously, there's a significant amount of, just capital. I mean, if we think there's capital being put behind this particular project, the ethanol industry, it pales in comparison to the amount of capital that's being put behind the electrical vehicle industry. And so the thing about it is, I might say something a little. I'm going to give you an analogy. well, I guess I think it's maybe a little humorous, but I think about 2016 when they were trying to sell electrical vehicles, and the poster child for an EV was a Toyota Prius. Okay, there's nothing sexy about a Toyota Prius. Okay, you know, if I showed up on a date, first date with a Toyota Prius, I'm pretty sure I'd be home by 9 and by myself. So you think about that in 2016, you're like, well, this is what's going to take out the ethanol industry? No way. Okay, this is not where it's going to go. But now, you know, we're 2023, you know, and things have changed dramatically. And, you know, and I think about, you know, I see what being built now, and I see the interest. You know, it's like now you go get a Ford Lightning. You know, if I'm gonna, and granted, I'll go on a date. I gotta be careful. My girlfriend will probably look at this one day and go, "Who's this girl you're taking on dates?" So, but so you set yourself up on some first date, and you show up in your Ford Lightning. Well, that's a different story, right? These things have now they're a status symbol. They're, you know, the 2016 Toyota Prius is not like a 2023 Ford Lightning. These are not the same vehicles. And this electrical vehicle market, it's coming, okay? And if you're in the ethanol industry and you're staring down potentially diminishing market share, okay, you're staring down a climate concerned customer. When I say a customer, I mean, I know people was like, they want to look at the Midwest. It's like, you know, the real customer for the ethanol industry, it's wherever you're selling gasoline and wherever, you know, this is going into vehicles. And it's the dominant place where all this stuff is going. It's, you got to look at your East, your West Coast. It's the population centers. And the people, as much as, you know, the people in Sioux County, who obviously I know the people in Sioux County quite well, as much as they want to just fight, you know, that everybody's wrong and they're wrong, but you got to get these people to vote with their dollars. And they don't want to buy your high carbon product, okay? This is anybody that's in, and I know that I'm probably about ready to get just blasted somewhere by somebody, but this is where things are going. And if you can't produce, you know, a low carbon product, nobody wants it. And you're not going to be viable as an ethanol plant. And you, if you're not working on carbon reduction in some way or form, I think, and I think this is going to come on fast. I mean, you know, a year or two from now, you might not, you know, your margin, you probably won't be able to be in business anymore. So if you ask me, am I for carbon reduction in the ethanol industry? Yes, I am behind that 100%. But am I for how we're going about this? Now, that's a different question. I'm not on board with how necessarily how this is being done. You know, I mentioned the ethanol industry is like, I don't sit in these, you know, I'm actually a shareholder of one plant, but I don't sit on the board of these plants. I don't know what these guys talk about. I don't know what kind of conversations, you know, what contracts or conversations that Summit has had or Navigator. And, you know, I don't know what they've talked about, but I'm willing to venture a guess that these people on these boards of these plants are going, you know, maybe getting attached to Summit. Maybe that's not, you know, some of them are like, maybe we don't necessarily want to be attached to Summit, but we sure as hell want to be attached to a carbon pipeline, okay? Because the only thing scarier than not working on taking the carbon out of your plant is being a plant that's not doing this. And that's the part where some of these plants that are not on it, I don't know if they were never asked. I'm an engineer and that stuff. Eventually, you got to define a scope, right? Summit, Navigator, Wolf, they can't come in and just decide one day. They're like, okay, every ethanol plant is going to be on a pipeline. It's like you got to define a scope. Maybe they can only have so many. I don't know. Phase 2, maybe phase 2, you pick up the rest of them. I don't know. But right now, not everybody's on it. I don't know if voluntarily they're on it or it just didn't work in the plan or what. But if you're an ethanol plant and you're not on this pipeline, you better have a good backup plan. And there are some out there, but one of the easier ones right now is the carbon capture. So as a farmer, as an engineer, as somebody who's working ethanol, I understand how the ethanol industry is looking at this and how they need it to work. Okay. Now, I think I'm thinking of the next point I want to make here. I know there's some representatives of the Sierra Club and some other individuals here that would have a count. I'm sure they have their own counterpoint to what I said. And it's not that I haven't done my due diligence to try to understand. I mean, at some point in time, I'm basing my decision, what I've said on my expertise and knowledge and my understanding of the industry and just economics. And I also did my due diligence. I wanted to understand all viewpoints, at least as best as I can. So I actually, a year ago, so I got in touch with the Sierra Club. And I've gone to some, a year ago, I was going to their meetings in Sioux City and that. And I met with them. And it's just me. I'm not representing anybody. It's just me trying to understand what is your viewpoint. Tell me what it is that you're concerned about. Give me some objective type, opinions, things like that. And help me understand what it is that you want to do. Because right now, the pipeline was coming through. It's like, even a year ago, it's like, I'm in a position to say something, or maybe I can support your opinion, maybe I can't, and actually, I would say that the meetings that I went to, I thought they were. I told them who I was. I said, why I was there, and I was just up front. I was like, just help me understand. And it was like, and I think things went pretty positive. All right. Granted, I don't get invited to their meetings anymore, but at least the ones I went to, the people were actually very nice. I didn't have anybody, bumping chests with me or anything like that. And it was like, and I don't think I confront people that way. So I just my mannerisms and how I treat people, I think that had a lot to do with, people maintaining some calm. And I don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with the Sierra Club, okay? I make my own opinions. Some of my opinions, again, like I said earlier, I said everybody's going to be mad at me before I leave here today. Some of my opinions, the individuals at the Sierra Club, they're going to like, right? Because maybe I'm only 50% on their team, but I'm not 100%, and there's some things that I still have some comments that I'm planning on making about Summit. And I know they're probably taking some notes going, hey, here's a guy that's saying some of the things that we like to hear. Hold on. I'm probably going to say some things that you just assumed I didn't say. So I'm stuck here in the middle. And I don't know where this is going to go. So, but like again, I'll go back to the Sierra guys. I was like, I don't know with anybody. I don't think anybody did that. I can't imagine anybody just objectively saying. And then I guess I'll to phrase it in a way. I was like, I guess I kind of felt like you walk into the lion's den. Right there in the middle of a Sierra Club meeting, and you tell them I'm pro pipeline, or I'm, I worked at an ethanol plant, and you're like, what's going to happen? So, I don't know if anybody else did that, and I did it on my own, and I guess I would hope that has some value at some point, that I'm upfront and I'm willing to discuss, but I want I want you to hear me out, because I think I have a valid opinion. So that's where that's at. But let me pull back when I say I'm 50% on board. I am a proponent of climate change, and I guess I've done the research, at least the research to my level of satisfaction, that I have a concern of there with climate change, and everybody, you can say, well, there's no climate change. I don't rehash it. Everybody knows the opinions. It's well advertised what everybody's opinions are. I have some concern as a person who has a science type background, that when I look at the information, the data, and I try to be very objective about, where I get my information. Okay. I try not to go to fringe areas and like that. It's like so many, people, I want to understand people that are objective. People that when I read what they say or hear what they have to say, I'm not feeling like I'm hearing a lot of inconsistencies. Okay. And it helps me try to develop an opinion that I think is objective. And and that's partly of what, if I'm working with people, I think I've got a pretty fine-tuned, ear and an eye for when somebody's being inconsistent. And I'm trying to be careful not to use a specific word. Because a lot of times, when if you're hearing somebody talk or listening to somebody and that, I pick up on those things pretty easy. It's kind of like, when somebody's talking, and to me, it's like music. I'm hearing people, it's like they're playing a song. And when they're talking, if all of a sudden something comes out that maybe they don't have confidence in, or maybe isn't truthful, right? It's like when they're playing that song, it's like they hit the wrong key, right? They're playing the piano, they hit a wrong key. It's like, okay, that it didn't sound right, okay? And I can see it. And I can see it in their face. I can see it in how they talk. It's like, okay, for me, it's just in my mind, I'm like, okay, take that comment. I'm going to put a pin in that. I'm going to come back to that later because there's something wrong there. And different people that I hear, maybe it's the Sierra Club like that. Every once in a while, somebody hits a wrong key. I'm like, okay, I got to investigate that. Something not right. And I know maybe I'm kind of picking on those guys a little bit. I think I can pick on Summit too. They play a lot. There's a lot of wrong keys that they play too. And I pick up on those things, and it's like, let's investigate. Let's find out, is this, what's the truth? If the two extremes are what Summit says and what Sierra Club says, then my guess is neither one of them are probably entirely accurate. There's probably a spot in the middle. Okay, that's probably where most of the truth lies. So that's where I'm at with, at least as far as kind of how my approach to looking at things now. like this particular project, I mentioned that individual I called yesterday. He's like, why? Obviously, I'm against eminent domain. That's clear cut to me. But if you're for a pipeline, why are you against? What is it that is causing you to be so wadded up and having such an issue with this? And I don't feel like that the public, and I don't want to say the landowners, I don't feel like they really know enough about the project. And, I have some safety concerns. And I know people have registered, obviously that's not new. That's a big portion of it. I have some safety concerns. I think they can be managed, but this person I talked to, he's like, well, how close, what's your safety concern? What you've got, and I know his question is kind of like, well, how close can that pipeline, how far away does it have to be or something before you're okay with it? And I was like, well, that's not, you're asking an engineer that, and I was like, that's not an easy answer. Because like this pipeline here on this property, I don't live there, okay? And actually, whoever's controlling it, if you could zoom out, here to the west side, yeah, there we get to, that's my cousin lives there. It's actually really coincidental because he bought that place just a few years ago. So it's actually, we've owned the farm for decades, and then he just happened to buy that farm there. So it's just coincidental that he even lives there. But he lives there with his family. And you sit there and go, okay, am I okay with this pipeline is not quite a half mile, short a half mile away? I'm like, well, I can paint a scenario that I'm not okay with that. I see a potential danger there. And that's based, I give you, mentioned it's like, well, it washes back there. What if there's a void? What if I drive over? Things like that. Well, I can take that a whole lot further, okay? So if you ask me what's it take for that, what's it take for me to sign an easement and be okay with the safety part of it? It's like, well, you're asking me an engineering question. Because, first of all, that pipe, 1,100, 2,200 PSI, okay? That's a significant amount of pressure. So if you've had a catastrophic failure, right? Something happens out there, and there's this. First of all, you're going to have to relieve the pressure, okay? And it's not, I don't want to use the word explosive, because when somebody says explosive, then they're thinking, combustion, and it's like, well, it's just a pressure release. But if you were to take that pipe and you have a pressure, let's say it's a catastrophic failure, and you do a pressure release, it'll leave a crater. You're going to have a very quick release of CO2, but then on top of that, it has to go through a phase change. And that's where you're going to get this extreme volume of gas, right, coming off of this pipeline. And, I look at that and I understand how that, kind of how that works. I said, this stuff, it hugs, it sits on the ground. It's not going to, if you want to equate it to a natural gas line, or with me, like an ammonia system, those things, they're not going to just, natural gas, it's not going to sit there on the ground. It's actually going to mix and move its way in the air. And natural gas has mercaptan in it. So you smell it. You know it. Even if you don't see it, but you smell it. You know it. It's there. Ammonia. It smells. It's going to irritate your mucous membranes, right? Ammonia. If you're in a large release, you're going to see the vapor cloud. So these are things that you know. But you ask me if a CO2 pipeline, is it is safe or less safe than natural gas or a ammonia line. I don't think it. I almost said the wrong thing there. I think it is more dangerous because you can't see it, right? You can't smell it, and you're not. If you get into that where the gas is sitting, you're going to fall asleep. I've seen chickens do it. Okay, I know what it looks like. So, and then it's just the pure volume of gas that you're going to have. So again, if you ask me what's it take, let's say, I've got the background. I mean, it would not be out of the realm of possibility that in another world or something like that, what if I'm the project manager for that pipeline? It very well could be. I mean, I've got the capability to do something like this. What if I was the guy and I was putting in that pipeline? How would I go about it? And it's like, well, how do I make it safe? And this is really more of the questions that you would have for the individual to summit, but like, okay, what's the size of the line? What's the pressure line? Where's the isolation valves at? Okay, how are you monitoring any pressure drop? What's the reaction time? Those are all the type of questions that for me that I need to have those. I need to understand that for me to at least feel more comfortable about it, because if I was going to do I've written PSM programs. If I was going to do a PSM for that, these are the type of things that I need to know. I can't write a PSM without it. I've done failure mode effects analysis. It's like, okay, I need to know what's going on to be able to quantify, right? Because I have to, if you're going to do something like this, you have to know what the severity is. And if you put a severity to something like this, it's significant, the potential severity. But also, if I'm writing a PSM program, another piece of that is the probability portion of it. And that is why the probability of it, it's, if this thing had a high probability of failure, I mean, there would have been we wouldn't have any pipelines anywhere, right? But I don't know what the probability of it. And I mentioned earlier, I said I was going to come back to it. I was like, I see, when I look at me turning on these roads, okay, and I look at, okay, could I get a void under that pipeline? Okay, that's me thinking about probability, right? And do we have that? I mean, can you show me a situation on these other 5,000 miles of pipeline that we have a situation like that? And it's like, I don't know. I'm not up here being a CO2 expert, right? Nobody's asked me to come up here to give my expert opinion. I just feel as though I'm somebody who can ask really good questions. That's my level of expertise. And, when I look at, these, the other landowners involved, I think about, how many people are in my situation. There's 700 some miles of pipeline in Iowa, and then I know we're just here for Summit, but I put Navigator with it because when you talk to something like this, they both really go together. So you got all the miles of Navigator, and then 2,000 miles total pipeline going all the way to North Dakota, and I think about all those landowners. Okay, you got this big circle of here's all the people that are these landowners. It's like, how many of them know? Right? You put like, okay, how many of them have an engineering degree? Right? Suck that down. That circle gets a lot smaller. How many of them have the expertise that I have? Okay, it gets sucked down even more. Okay, how many of them? Well, I guess where I'm going from is like I feel as though I'm in. I don't even think I'm in the top 1% of people that would understand this. I'm probably in the top 10% of people that would understand this. So I'm asking the questions. I'm trying to understand it, and I'm trying to. And when I say I'm pro pipeline or things like that, the question that is what let's just spit it out there. Why are you here? What is it why haven't you signed an easement? Why, what is it about this? And I just, I think about what kind of person I am. Okay, I'll use I'll use it's a movie line. Like, if something's wrong, then those who have the ability to do something have the responsibility to do something. And I feel as though I have the ability to at least say something, so then I have the responsibility to say something. And it is like, and if nobody else is going to, then I guess I have to step up and do it myself, as comfortable as I am. Because I'll give you maybe try to define a little bit of like how at least what kind of person I am or how I think, and that is, it's a little bit, maybe a little bit different of a story, but like this summer, I was with my family and, and my girlfriend and her son, and we were on the outside of, I was driving on the outside of Sioux City, and we're on a pretty busy street, pretty busy kind of, well, not it's on the outside, but it's on the highway. 10 cars behind us, 10 cars in front of us, or coming the other direction. And it's one of the things where I saw an accident going to happen. Okay, and I imagine most people have been in some way, have been in that situation where it's like that half a second before it actually happens. It's like, okay, I'm driving along, okay, those two cars are going to hit, and they're going to hit hard. And you're like, me, I'm like, you got to react. I was like, I used to run a race car. So for me, it's just, I'm not trying to talk myself or anything, but it just kind of becomes instinct. So you see it, you're like, okay, this is going to happen. Instinctively, it's just, within just the, snap your fingers, it's like, okay, I'm like behind me. It's like, okay, I can't just slam on my brakes. There's going to be a 10-car pilot behind me if I do that. This car that's going to hit, it's probably going to bounce off into my lane. I got to be looking for a hole, and that's essentially what I did. You shoot off to the side, and you stop the car. These two cars, the cars hit, and it was ugly. And so then I stopped, pulled into a lawn, drove onto a lawn, and then I look out to the side. One of the car that was towards the back wasn't that far away from me, and I checked the mirror, checked behind it, make sure somebody else isn't shooting down the highway right at me too. I was like, okay, things are clear. Jump out of the car, run over to the car that was in the back, and there's steam pouring out in front of it, oil coming out the bottom. It's the front of this car is smashed to shit, and windshield, airbags are off, everything's, the windshield's broken. I run up to it, barely can see into the driver, and I see her in there. She's just dazed. You can see that, she's moving around. I try to open the door. I can't get the door to open. Okay? So I go to the back door of her van. I open the back door. And her little girl's in there in the back seat. And she got blood coming down her face, and she's crying, and I just, I'm gonna keep going, like, talk to her, like checking her over, want to, make sure she's okay, and tell her, like, you're gonna be all right, I'm here, and well, then, take a step back, And I look, and the 10 cars, that were in one direction, 10 cars in the other direction, I see one guy from way in the back, and I'm waiting, and he's running up, and he's got his cell phone on him, and I'm just like, she's hurt. You gotta call 911. You need to tell him to get a paramedic here. And then, I told him, I was like, well, let me check on the driver. But at the same time, I'm staring, I'm looking, and I see 20 people, 19 people sitting in their car doing nothing. Just sitting there watching us. And I can't understand that. I would just sit there and do nothing. So, I guess that's I think I'm telling a story, but that's kind of, I guess that's the person I am. So I look at this, this pipeline, and it's like, okay, I have the ability to say something, to do something. Then I need to get up here and I need to do it. So that's why I'm here. I have some concerns in that, and I'll carry this a little further, because you can say, I shared that story, but now it's about what could happen with this pipeline, and if it's not handled right. And this pipeline goes south, pretty much straight south. We've got another property to the south of this, about 4 miles, and the pipeline is just across the fence. It's not on our land, but it's on my neighbor's land. And my neighbor, they've signed the easement, and I actually went and talked to him last week. I told him I was being really careful what I said, but I talked to him. I wanted to understand if he knew what he signed, and I was just, I didn't want to come straight out. It was like straight out and say something, but it was like, okay. It was like, well, he's like, we got natural gas lines all over. We farm on that, and like, we'll be able to deal with it. And it's like, well, CO2, can't be much different. Every other, it's just another pipeline. And I'm going, I don't know if you really understand what it is that you got going on here. And this neighbor of mine, he's this pipeline's going to be, if my cousin over here is half a mile away, well, he's like 100 yards away from this pipeline. And when I sit there and think about it, and I the closest I live is 3.5 miles. Where the pipeline runs, I'm 3.5 miles away from it. Like, I can go to bed at night. I'm not too worried about me going to bed at night 3.5 miles away. Even if there's a catastrophic thing, I'm not concerned about something happening to me. But 100 yards, I'm very concerned about it being 100 yards from somebody's house where they're sleeping. And, well, I look at, I sit there and he's a good farmer. He's going to take care of it. He's a good farmer and that. So it's not like he's wild or anything like that. But I have some concerns about that. And I don't want to not say something. And then something happens. Because I said, 16 years ago. I haven't felt this way for 16 years. And um, 16 years ago, this gentleman that I'm referring to, my mother got in a car accident, harvest time, and he was the first one there. And he tried to save her life, and it didn't work out. She passed away, and if something happened with his pipeline, and if something happened to his family, I wouldn't be able to live with it if I didn't do something. So, if this gentleman that I talked to yesterday, it's like, well, how close can that pipeline be? It's like, well, yeah, I've got a lot of engineering questions about it, but I'll tell you what, it's way too close to his house. And if I got to pick where that, if the only choice we got is where that pipeline need to be, I said I'd rather have it 100 yards from my place than 100 yards from his. Because if something's going to happen, it just happened to me, not somebody else. So, so I didn't know I was going to do this. I think I'm getting towards the end. So why do I have, after all that, why do I have reservations about Summit? And I look at how I said I do a lot of research. Okay, I don't take things lightly. Obviously, I've done a lot of research in the Summit. So the question, if I don't have a problem with the what of the project, then evidently I have a problem with the how and the who. And when I do my research on Summit, I have reservations over their ability to handle this project responsibly. I understand the timing. Again, it's economics. These tax programs and that. Just the what I mentioned, the EVs and that. All this stuff has a deadline. And if you're a company and you're punching spreadsheets and everything else, it comes down to a date and opportunity cost. And I've been this guy, obviously not to this scale, but I've worked at different places. It's like, I'm the guy running the spreadsheet. I understand how this works. If you gotta, time is a big part of this. There's hedge funds and that involved. When I think of how somebody, how people are looking at this, from the economic level, it'll be another movie line, but if you're going to make money doing a project like this or like that, you either be first, be smarter, or cheat. And I know a lot of people, if you're on one side, you're going to go, well, it's number 3. I'm like, well, to be honest, number 1 plays a big part of it, because you're a whole lot better being first. And that's where they're at. They want you need to be first. Hence, this thing, from the economics of it, that's why they want to go fast. Okay? And I understand that. Okay? I'm not trying to make them the villain because they're not that's everything we do out there. Look at how Elon Musk operates. It's all about being first. Okay? And so I understand that, but what are we sacrificing to be first? How do we, and it's a question. I'm not giving an answer, but how do we fix this so that we're not putting a bunch of people in danger because we're so concerned about being first? We're pushing through something on eminent domain that people don't want to be first. It's like that's the real problem. And I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to it's like me telling how am I supposed to tell $1 billion, well, in the case of Navigator, $1 trillion hedge fund, you need to just wait. I'm like, they're not going to. That's not what's going to happen. Okay? They're going to push it through. And that was, this person that I talked to, he said to me, he's like, do you really, you're an objective person. You can do your research. You see what's going on. And he's like, if this was a card game, the deck is stacked. Can anybody deny that? It's just so blatantly obvious. So it would be nice if somebody would stand up and go, we've got a problem here. And, he's like, does it, and then other people tell me the same thing. Like, other people, they're like, why fight this? It's like, this thing is going to happen no matter what. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, it's going to happen. Okay? And I'm like, I get it. I'm not stupid. I know how things work in this country. Okay? I guess it goes back to, like, I just, if I don't, I'll regret it. So that's fine. I come up here and I say something. Now I don't have to go 16 more years going, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you do something? So, another piece of that, when I say, like the deck is stacked, if I'm running a business, or like, let's say I'm running Summit's business, okay? I'm looking at this thing going, okay, the ethanol industry, right? You got 45Q, LCFS, right? That's the easy money, okay? And I'm talking, I'm trying to think like a hedge fund. when I'm saying this, so don't beat me up later because I'm saying something that you don't like. It doesn't mean I agree with it. I'm just saying I'm thinking like a hedge fund. So yeah, easy money there. The ethanol industry, to use a to analogy, the blood is in the water. Okay, they're in trouble. It's going to be a problem. So if the only way for an ethanol industry to be viable is they have to put their carbon or their CO2 into a pipeline or into your pipeline, right? You now have a significant level of control of definitely those ethanol plants, but really if you've got enough of them, you have significant control of the ethanol industry. And that is concerning to me as a farmer, as somebody in a community, that I'm not comfortable with somebody being able to control that much of the industry. Because if you control the ethanol industry, you have a control over the corn market. And that is a scary thing to me. And when I talk about control or consolidation, I'm a farmer. I have to, September starts tomorrow. That's when the seed and the chem programs and that usually get going. So now I've got to, I'm seed and your chem, pretty much the dominant players and the ones that really control the industry. You're talking about Corteva, EASF, Bayer. They pretty much run the market. And so me as a farmer, it's very frustrating to me the way like the seed and the chemicals are now they're monopolized. And there's somebody within Summit's organization that is on the record that agrees with me. And you can do a Google search yourself and figure out who that is. At the same time, I look at what's going on with ethanol, and I see the potential to do the same thing. And I don't see that as the public good. Okay? Providing monopolization of an industry does not look to me as a public good. And if electric vehicles are causing a diminished market demand for your product, you start looking at where's the next place to go. And again, I've done my research, right? I feel as though I've got a pretty good handle that the next best place is the sustainable aviation fuel. So if you want to look forward, right? Again, I'm a hedge fund. You get control over the CO2. You now got control of the ethanol industry. The only way that they can produce a viable product is through your pipeline, through your CO2 pipeline. The next step you do is you start a sustainable aviation fuel plant. Maybe you start the largest sustainable aviation fuel plant. Now you've got control over the viability of the ethanol industry, and you also become one of the biggest places for them to market their product. You now run the ethanol industry, and you don't even have to own an ethanol plant to do it. That is a scary scenario for me as a farmer, because now some hedge fund or one individual or whoever, they now control the margin, right, of what the ethanol industry is going to. They get to determine what they're going to make. And I have lived this. I spent, I mentioned 10 some years working in the food industry. I lived this with Walmart. Walmart, when I started, was not a big player in the food industry. And then they went to the player in the food industry. And I was working on the production side for providing products for Walmart, and I had to deal with this. How to be viable in this world where Walmart runs it. And not everybody made it. When that change happened, there's quite a few people that are not in business anymore because they couldn't compete. And if you're a supplier like me, if the ethanol plants aren't making money, and if their margin is controlled, that will end up impacting me as a corn farmer. I do not see that for the public good. I have reservations about a company positioning themselves to have that kind of control. I think there should be. I don't actually. I didn't even know how you would even. I guess I'm in favor of regulation, but I don't even, when I say that word, I don't even know what that is. But it definitely is worth discussion because I don't want to be sitting here trying to figure out how to market my crop, knowing that my margin has already been set by just a handful of CEOs. I guess when I don't want to be this farmer that, you're like, you got no choice, right? We've set what you're going to make on your farm, right? And it's not, I make it sound like they're just going to set the price. It's like, there's still got market forces, weather, and all these things still play in. But eventually they're going to control the margin. I mean, I look at, we went through went through the last couple of years of significantly good margins in the farming industry. And guess what came with it? Highest input cost we ever had. And it's just, was it warranted or not? I don't know, but I know that Corteva, Bayer, they're going to charge what they can charge because it doesn't matter. We've got control. Where are you going to go? You got control. We can charge whatever we want. So you guys get $7 corn. Get ready for some spendy corn. Get ready for some expensive, chemicals. And then we went through this situation where you're like, well, we can't get, then all of a sudden supply disruptions, things like that. And then we just went through all that. And now you find out, well, it looks like we got too much of everything now. And you're like, okay, so was this, all these other things, did they really happen or not? I mean, I think you just knew what people would pay, and you just manufactured a way that, you tried to manufacture it, well, it's not our fault, it's somebody else's fault. I'm like, no, it's not. You knew what people would pay, so you come up with some reason why it's got to be this way. And then when I hear it, it's like the song in my head. You start hearing that, and you're like, okay, you guys are making I'm hearing a lot of wrong notes. I think something's wrong. And, I see things going that same route. And I don't want to have the corn industry or something get hurt, right? Because we're going to do something today because this is why we have to do it today, but we just set something up for something much worse later. So,
well, appreciate your unique and broad take, Mr. Utesch. That's very helpful. We want to tie this down to your specific parcel. And I think Farm Bureau's got a couple of questions. I'm out of my questions on your parcel. Do you have any tight specifics that we didn't cover earlier before Farm Bureau gets to their portions.
No.
There's a couple, however many questions they have. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Hi, Mr. Utesch. My name is David Myers. I'm an attorney on behalf of the Iowa Farm Bureau Federation. I just have a few questions for you. Do you have crop insurance?
Yes.
And can we zoom out a little on the KMZ map, please? Do you see that structure in kind of this, it's southeast from your parcel, just north of 500th Street and directly east of the...
Yeah, that's a confinement hog building.
Do you own that?
No.
Do you know who does?
Oh.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm probably getting ahead of you. Did you happen to look up who owns it?
I just can identify a Utesch owns it, / I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the other last name, but it's SCHLICHTE.
Yeah, I know where you're going. Yeah, his name is Utesch. I'm distantly related to him. We actually graduated high school together, so we're almost the same age. So that's why I was like, yeah, I thought I was kind of jumping on you, like when you saw it, I'm like, yeah, I know where you're going. So, but no, I'm not involved with that hog building. So that's yours. It's just we just coincidentally have the same name.
Thank you. That's all I needed.
Okay. Are there questions from any other parties? All right. So Board Member Burns does not appear to have any. I don't believe we have any further questions, Mr. Utesch, but
After that long, drawn-out thing, I imagine everybody's scared to death to ask me a question now.
we
Back on another half hour.
we appreciate your input, appreciate you making the drive, and you are excused. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, so before we recess for the weekend, just a few quick notes to wrap up. As you're aware, the board invited landowners to testify at the beginning of the proceeding if that was their preference. We've now satisfied all of those requests, although I'll note we have accommodated some other landowner requests that will be scheduled later during the hearing. With that being said, we will proceed to the presentation of Summit's witnesses next Tuesday. We will begin at 10 a.m. The board anticipates remaining in session next Friday, and we will release details as quickly as we can tonight in the daily and weekly digest. But we will be here Tuesday at 10 a.m. for the start of Summit's presentation, and I would anticipate being here next Friday. So thank you all.